So basically, this is the final part. I believe this is the final part of this current trilogy. It's a
You
spin-off.
never know with these Rocky movies. To be
Actually,
fair.
you know
Real
what?
talk, bruv.
That's a
Real
good
talk.
point.
I'm pretty sure it's got a bit more mileage left in it, bruv.
Yeah, no, 100%.
It should be. It should be. The
Yeah, there was. I don't know if you've seen
Yeah.
any interviews, but he like even Michael B. Jordan, who is like the director as well as the main star of this film, he was saying he's definitely looking to expand into like different franchise, like video games, comic books, anime, TV show, you name it. So he's like, yeah, this is definitely not going to be the final chapter. So pardon me, but yeah, so we're talking about basically the third Creed movie in the series. So this stars Adonis Creed, who is the son of Apollo Creed, who is from I think he was in the first 3 Rocky movies, or the first 2.
I think he was in 4 because I think that's when he
Oh,
died.
was it? Oh, okay, right. Okay. Well, I haven't watched the Rocky
I can't
movies in
remember.
a while.
There's a lot of them.
Yeah, I'm probably wrong. But yeah, anyway, so as we all know, it's not really a spoiler, but his dad obviously, passed away because he fought. I can't remember Dolph Lundgren's character, but he basically Drago. That's it. Whose son, funny enough, was in the last Creed movie. So yeah, this time around, so Adonis Creed is going up against his childhood rival, someone that he has a lot of history with, basically. And I think this is the first opponent he's had, which he actually has that kind of backstory with. So this guy's spent the last 18 years in a penitentiary. His name's Dame, by the way. So they basically cross path. Like fate allows them to cross path. Well, I don't know if you call it fate or it was just like all deliberate. Like it was part of like some master plan. But anyway, you put it like they cross paths, and then they become reunited, and they catch up and whatnot. And ultimately, this film's not exactly full of surprises. Like, let's be honest, we kind of all know where it's going at that point in time. So yeah, the story kind of really just follows the set path that is obvious. So yeah, getting into like the details of it, how did you guys feel about this movie? Is there anything that stuck out?
I feel this movie is the weakest of the 3 out of the 3, the trilogy. Even though obviously one of the major things about this movie is that there's no Sylvester Stallone in it, because of outside of the movie issues with regards to ownership of this Rocky franchise and what have you. And I didn't actually mind that because I think this movie, there was a way to do this movie without Sylvester Stallone. I'm not sure if this one nailed that. So I think his presence was actually missed because I think Sylvester Stallone is quite an underrated actor in these Rocky movies. I think he does quite a good job, and he brings a wholesomeness to the role. But obviously this is portraying a much older Adonis who doesn't need Rocky anymore because he's heavyweight champion of the world. He's now retired, he's now a promoter, and he's bringing through his own fighters is what they wanted to portray. So I understand why they didn't want Rocky to be included in the movie from that point of view. But having watched the other 2, or clips of the other 2 recently, it did feel like it was missing because I don't think the story in this movie by itself did enough to capture my attention all the way through.
Yeah, I think just going off what you said, Peter, about kind of how it kind of follows that kind of like predictable formula. I think that's actually one of its shortcomings because it was just like mad predictable in terms of I feel like you could sum the movie up in like 10 seconds or less. And Rocky, the whole Rocky series and Creed series, one of the lovable things that I quite like about it is that it's always been kind of an underdog story, the journey of the underdog to overcome the obstacles in their path and eventually come out on top. But for me, it was actually Dame's character who was really the underdog in this movie. I think for me, it would have been actually better if they just kind of flipped it on its head a bit and actually made the movie revolve around his character more. Because his character, for me, obviously because he's a new character, he has a lot more to bring to the table in terms of growth. We don't know that much about him. We haven't seen him in any of the other movies. Whereas Adonis's character, I feel like he's kind of peaked in the first 2 movies, and the only thing that we've really got from him in this movie is backstory. He hasn't really done anything new. He hasn't really had to push himself to his limits like he did in the first two movies. It was kind of just more or less him, what would you say, making a comeback? Like, or forced to make a comeback for personal reasons. Yeah, but it was through like personal reasons as well, which I think kind of sours it. Like you said, he almost, like, you know, he's training up his own fighters. He's almost kind of taking up that Rocky mantle in, you know, bringing up the next generation. And then a third of the way through the movie, he's like, actually, do you know what? I need to get back in the ring, which I think for me just kind of made me just think, you know, he doesn't really have much to bring.
There was a good reason why he got in the ring. Like, obviously, you know, in this film's defense, it might not have been like a clever reason, but it pretty much I feel like the film gives an excuse for him to get in the ring. Like, he's not just like,
it's an excuse.
I'm on top of my game, so now you know what? Why not? Like, you know, because I feel like the way this movie starts, he's kind of achieved everything that he kind of hoped for. And like
he's retired, bruv. He's like done.
Yeah, exactly. That's it, exactly. So he's not even really participating. But this film, like, because obviously the whole like pathos of the characters and whatnot, and you know, their history and whatnot, and like things that transpire along the trajectory of the story, I feel like that's what kind of he's kind of driven by his ego more than, like, he's not really thinking rationally. It's definitely emotionally driven. It's his ego and his pride that kind of gets him back into the ring. So I can kind of see how that would work out. But my issue is, actually, we like spoke about this kind of earlier, and you were saying how I felt like Michael B. Jordan, his character Adonis, felt a little bit like too much of the focus, where Dame should have been more of the focus in this movie. Like, I feel because we kind of know Adonis, so it should have spent more time with Dame, who we don't know. Like, we only really kind of learned about him in his flashbacks, rather than like, because remember we were talking about how it would have been interesting if we saw him kind of grow up through prison. So we kind of followed him on that journey, and through that we kind of built up more of a motivation to see him win instead of Adonis, because he's the only like underdog villain. He's the only underdog villain.
The only problem with that is then they have to change the name of the movie, because the movie is called Creed and it's got to be about Creed.
No, of course, Creed is like Creed is the main focus of the story. But we already know all there is to know. Obviously, aside from the fact that he has a daughter now, I feel like the first two movies kind of established him and built, like, you come into this movie having an emotional attachment to Creed, but I feel like the final fight would have been more I don't know, like, more powerful if
the thing is, to do what you want to do, the movie would either be too long, or the movie would have to focus on Dame, and then you only see Creed either at the beginning or at the end for the fight.
Well, I don't know. I don't feel like it would have had to have specifically focused, overly focused on Dame. I just think a bit more focused on him would have been more interesting. All the scenes that we kind of see Adonis in this film, like, I mean, there's not even that many fights in this movie. Like, no, do you know what I mean? There's like 3 fights, and obviously the main fight towards the end when he fights Dame, like the first fight he has, again, one of the things I would have liked to have seen to kind of show, actually, if you are going to try and make Adonis that underdog character who's overcoming adversity, make him lose that first fight. Let him have it earlier, let him lose that first fight, and let us see how he overcomes adversity and makes that comeback. Don't just put him in the ring and then just have him win. Like,
you're forgetting.
We all expect it.
Because what I'm also saying is that they skipped the round, because obviously we started off around 1 and 2 and then they skipped to round 12. We've seen more rounds where he's losing than.
I think part of the problem is, and this is what in boxing, I'm a boxing fan. Usually, so one of the most important things about a boxing fight is the build up to the fight. So like the press conferences, the weigh-ins, all of that. I felt like you're saying, there weren't enough fights, but specifically there weren't enough Dame fights. He literally fought twice. He should have, after he beat Adonis's heavyweight, he should have then had another 2, maybe 3 fights, so we can establish how good he actually is.
Yeah.
Because obviously I know he beat the heavyweight champion of the world, but he also portrayed him as a dirty fighter. You know, using tactics like punching the shoulder and stuff like that. So we didn't get an idea of how good he actually was. And obviously, he's an aging fighter as well. He's older than Adonis. So anything that, any handicap or underdog nature that Adonis would have could be applied to Dane even more so, because he's older, he's got less experience because he's never been a world champion. So like you're saying, he's an underdog. So I think if, in order to build up that fight, you should have had maybe Dame beating more of Adonis's fighters before forcing him to get into the ring, and maybe that would have built up some of the stakes, having a bit more outside of the ring interaction, because apart from that interaction on the beach where he punched him in the face straight after, and that interview with Stephen A. Smith where he phoned in, there wasn't much build up to the fight. Basically, bam, this happened, and then they're gonna fight each other, and he has his sparring montage. I think they should have done a montage of them knocking out other fighters as well to build up his status, because I don't really think, if this was in real life, a lot of people were saying, well, obviously Dame lost. He's had one fight. He's like the former heavyweight champion of the world. Adonis is the former undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. It was a foregone conclusion that he was going to lose. So I think they missed the mark heavily there.
So would you say a similar kind of bufumble that they made with the actor in Ant-Man as well, with not showing how heavy hitting he is and how hard he can be? And the reason I say that is because as well, obviously he comes in at the beginning of the movie, like when he first spars with Adonis' heavyweight, he basically gets pushed around by him. Like obviously, you know, he gets pushed around, and this is why I would have thought it would have actually been good.
No, the reason he gets pushed around is because it's sparring. He's there for a particular job. He's not there to win the fight. In sparring, you're meant to hold back and box him over. That is why. And that is why he was getting frustrated, because he in his head, he knows he can beat this guy, but this guy's punching bag essentially. So to prepare him for another fight. So that is why it's not like he was capable. In sparring,
I actually thought,
that's
but I actually thought during those sparring matches he was actually getting pushed around because he got frustrated, and then after that is when he kind of had his kind of training montage where you see him doing push-ups, doing the exercises. I thought the whole point of that was showing that actually he's come out of prison, he used to be the shit back in the day, he's realized that actually I can't compete with, you know, the standard at the moment, so I now need to train myself and get my body to its peak or near its peak.
I think that's the case.
No, that's not that. I don't think that was. I think it was the case that he was put in there for sparring. In sparring, generally, you're not meant to fight properly in terms of you're meant to. It's sparring, it's practice, and the heavyweight is the prize fighter essentially. So if he sustains any sort of injuries, then that's gonna have a knock-on effect on the promoter as well. So that's why he was getting shouted at when he did start fighting back properly. It wasn't that like he's doing push-ups in his room and stuff, because he's 38 or however, he wouldn't have been able to improve if there was that gap. He's not going to improve that by that much. So I think it was established that he was already capable, but he also did have to fight dirty as well.
So presumably then.
I didn't like the fact that they made him a dirty fighter, because I think you could have made him a far more likable antagonist, or at least someone you could empathize with, a more empathetic antagonist, if you didn't make him fight dirty. Or making him fight dirty, you just turn him into a generic.
Yeah, you should have.
I actually quite like the fact that they made him fight dirty in that first fight, but I think the reason it rubs across the wrong way is, again, like, you assume that way of fighting is something he's picked up from in prison. Like, obviously,
exactly.
Again, this is all like assumptions.
There's no rules. There's no rules
like
in prison.
He had fights in prison, and that is a way of fighting he adopted while he was in prison. Which is, it would have been good to actually, like Peter said, see that side of what he was going through in prison, because then when you see it in the ring, you'll be like, oh, okay, now he has to transition from being like, you know, kind of like that kind of prison cage fight with no rules to now actually following rules. That would have been a good part of his like character development to see, which I think they missed out on.
Yeah, and the other thing is, obviously he's meant to be a villain. Like, he's supposed to be a sympathetic villain, so hence why they put the dirty, like, because you know, I think most Rocky moves, most Rocky films, the antagonist uses kind of dirty tactics to obviously show that they're the villain, like they're willing to do whatever it takes to win, and that's generally with most combat, like these type of like sport combat movies. And I was gonna say with this movie, they were kind of like, because they obviously they wanted to sell Dame as a sympathetic villain who you're supposed to have empathy for, but I thought it kind of they fell flat with that, trying to achieve that, because they made him like too nice, like not too nice, but he just didn't have that. He didn't seem to have that kind of ferociousness that you would expect, like someone that's been, he went down for 18 years over this guy who we thought was his brother. Like that's the ultimate betrayal. So I thought I would have expected him to just have a bit more ferociousness. But
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying, but you need to remember as well, like he was almost like, in a way, like I quite loved like when like his first introduction in the movie. He really did come across as like a sympathetic, humble character, especially in that scene in the diner.
That was fine. But I wanted to see.
But what I was going to say is you later find out that he's actually kind of manipulating things, isn't he? So obviously you don't get to see that ferocious side of him, or any kind of ferocious side, until the shoe's on the other foot and he's now gunning for Adonis's title. So,
but even we were saying,
we
were saying how like that, because I get that, but that is just a contrivance. Like it's just to get the story going, to where it needs to be. But I feel like they need to put something there, like where you actually, as an audience member, you feel like, oh, this guy's a scumbag. Because like, really, truly, so he did that setup, You're not thinking, oh, this guy's a scumbag. You're just like, oh, I understand why he did that, because he was trying to get this thing. But if he did something like he didn't need to do, like he, for example, maybe he like killed Adonis's mom, like there was no need to do that. That's just like evil. You know what I mean?
But that's
so
but
that would kind of make you feel that more of that that
I know what you mean.
Hate towards him.
I know what you mean.
Because I don't really feel any strong emotions towards him, because he's not hateable enough to be like a villain, but he's not really sympathetic enough, because they just don't really show his backstory. They don't really you don't really follow his journey for him to be sympathetic enough. Does that make sense? I think you don't really see, and I get what you're saying. It almost feels like you don't really get to see his anger in the movie. Even that scene where he punches Adonis like on the beach. Like for me, that didn't even come across as like anger and rage. That kind of just came across as like threatening and pumping his chest out. It didn't really come across as like someone who's got a vendetta, who's out for vengeance. And I don't think
that's what it is.
Yeah, I don't think that's what his character is. He's not meant to be.
His character is he was an up and coming boxer who got locked away, and he just lost his time. Where Adonis did what he should have been doing. I don't think it's more jealousy than anything else.
Yes. Probably yes, more jealousy. That you're standing where I should have been. Where I should be.
Of course.
I don't think he ever actually blames Adonis for going to prison, because that was his fault. That was completely his fault, and he didn't go to prison for 18 years just because of that. It was because of all the other things he's done as well that had nothing to do with Adonis as well. I think it was more the jealousy aspect, in terms of he's where I should have been, and also the fact that you abandoned me, you never visited.
But that's the thing, he ran away.
It's more of that. I don't think he ever blamed Adonis.
No, but it's the betrayal. But the sense of betrayal is still there. Do you know what I mean? Even if you don't blame, even if he's not directly to blame for you, like. It's like, you left me high and dry. We were supposed to be brothers, like, but you just abandoned me. You like forgot about me, because obviously he doesn't know that his mum was holding the letters and whatnot. But I don't know about you. I just like, if I was to put myself in his shoes, then like I would just be way more like upset. But obviously everyone's different.
You would expect his character to be that way, and obviously Adonis feels guilty and blames himself for what happened, even if Dame doesn't. Adonis blamed himself, so you would expect for Dame's character to be that kind of vengeful character. But again, they just didn't write his character that way, and I don't think it necessarily takes away from his character, but it does make it harder to place, because even towards the end of the movie, where they're in like the locker room and they have that quick like 3-minute chat, and it's like all the tension kind of disperses, it almost makes you just feel like, what was this tension building up to in the first place, that it can just be dispersed with a quick conversation, like a quick yeah man, cool.
Well, it wasn't dispersed with a quick conversation, it was dispersed in the actual fight. I think that last scene, because I think one of the criticism of Creed 2 was a deleted scene that they removed, where after the Creed 2, in fighting Creed 2, Adonis went to see Drago and actually talked to him after the fight, and it was to show that in boxing, after the fight, that boxers should show respect and that they do have mutual respect for each other, and that they and I think that's why they included that scene this time, is in order, because I think it's a very important scene in boxing movies, is that unless like they truly hate each other, they were like brothers beforehand.
Well, this is the thing. This is the thing. The reason I say it makes it feel like that tension is dispersed is because there is an element of this which is personal because of their history. It's not just about, like, if it was just about the boxing, then yes, but there is an element that they're trying to put forward in this movie that it is like a personal, emotional element, and it rarely felt like that. Obviously, it peaked in the fight, but then it just kind of was dispersed. I know you're saying it was dispersed in the ring, but it just kind of just made the thing, for me anyway, it made it feel a bit cheap that all of this tension could be dispersed with a quick, if you needed
exactly
to,
my point. Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
I will say though, like,
I'm not sure what I would have liked to have seen, but I just wish they would have done it some other way rather than just a quick chat in the locker room after everything that they went through in this film. Like,
so basically, you're a filmmaker's nightmare, basically.
I think that we're all probably filmmaker nightmares. To be honest,
I feel like
Oh, sorry, go on. Yeah.
No, just quickly. I was gonna say because obviously we all agree the story could have been better, and I feel like to an extent maybe as you were saying before, Law, Sylvester Stallone might have had a big part to play in it, because if you really think back, like, he wrote the original Rocky script. So he knows how to write a good emotional story, because that story really kind of pulls your heartstrings. So he knows how to like add that depth to the story. So maybe like his kind of inclusion or lack of inclusion in this movie had a part to play with the story being really like basic, or like not, I don't know, just kind of lacking that depth that the other two have.
Bit hollow.
Yeah, exactly. But sorry, you were gonna say something, weren't you?
I was gonna say sorry, I was gonna say something else, but yeah, just to kind of go off what Peter said, like the emotional lacking, like even the scene like where his mother passed away. In that scene, like for me, that didn't feel like I felt like that should have hit harder. But even that scene felt like, to me, in a movie like this, it didn't hit as hard as I would have expected it to. And it almost made it. Obviously, there was a lot of foreshadowing at the beginning, like when she was drinking wine and stuff, and you're like, at that point, you kind of, I was just like, okay, she's not gonna last this movie. But the way that she passed in the film, I think they should have done that in a way which makes it hits the viewer hard, and you can see it hitting Adonis's character hard, because there's a few times when I even forgot that it happened until I thought about and tried to recap what happened in this movie. Oh yeah, his mother passed. I don't know if you guys got that sense.
It's because it's such a cliche. Like, this film is full of cliches, so that is just like another one of the bingo checklist of this is like what sports movie is gonna. Oh, sorry, like a Rocky movie is gonna have. So I feel that's why
usually something like that is used as some kind of motivation for a character, like sometimes. But I didn't get the sense it was a motivational or impactful event for Adonis's character. It was just a scene that happened, and then after that, it's almost you forget about it, kind of thing.
It was unnecessary, and I think it came out of nowhere as well, because we didn't. In the last movie, she had no health issues at all. So this time, obviously, her previous stroke happened off screen. It was before the movie. So it was into that she was unwell. But yeah, her death didn't really add anything to the story in terms of, it was just there as a checkbox ticking exercise, and just in order to add some emotionality, some emotionality to the movie, but it just had nothing to do with what the movie was about. So it just, that's probably why it didn't hit that hard, because it just wasn't relevant. I mean, it just really wasn't relevant to the movie, so it just didn't need to be there.
I think when I can't remember, I think it was you, Peter. Like when I spoke to you ages ago, you were saying something like, even if they had done something like had like Dame like I don't know if you said like him like basically like kill or lead Adonis's like mother to her death, if that would have been more impactful. And I think I disagreed at the time, but thinking about it, even that could have been something to at least make like something that Dame could have used maybe to make like to really give Adonis that push to get back into the ring. Like that could have been a good story. Not necessarily him like flat out like taking his mother out, but maybe just an event which happened which maybe puts her in a coma, or something which happens involving his mum which pushes Adonis over the edge and almost justifies him more getting back into the ring, over that emotional turmoil.
And as I
think
before,
that sounds even more cliche, to be fair.
Sometimes cliche works, bruv. Look, sometimes cliche works when you're looking for those emotional tones in it. But what they did, it would have been better than what they did, because what they did was almost just like cliche but unfinished, like half-assed. You know what I mean?
I was also going to say,
if you're gonna do it, follow through.
they kind of did the same thing in the previous Creed, except it was Sylvester Stallone. It was Rocky. But obviously he didn't pass away, but he kind of was, almost like, as an audience member, that kind of is what kind of gives that that sorrow in the movie to kind of make you feel Adonis' pain. As I said, it's a film.
We can't really compare them, because Rocky in the actual movie series is a big part of it. So if he's down, then people are going to care.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Listen,
but so is she.
It was impactful enough in the last movie that I actually thought, when I was thinking, I actually thought like Rocky died in the last film, like until like I looked it up and a lot of people do. Yeah. It was impactful enough that in my recollection he died.
But
so even that
series is a big name. You can't really compare Rocky to Adonis' mother.
I know what you're trying to say. Like, you can't compare them, but then it's just like, why even put it in the film?
But the thing is,
it's just a waste of screen time.
She's a big part of like the support cast. Like, she's been in quite a few movies, so we have that kind of baggage. Not baggage, I don't say baggage, but we have that attachment to her character because she's so familiar. So I think that's what. Obviously, she's not on the same level as Rocky. He's the main, he's the main star.
Yeah.
But I wanted to move on to like some of the like behind the scenes stuff, because obviously, as you guys are aware that Michael B. Jordan is his directorial debut. So it's actually the first movie that he's directed, and the fact that he's like, leading the production. Well, not the production, but he's like basically the one. It's his vision, as well as him being the main actor. Like, I just take my hat off, because like that is a very difficult thing to do. Even doing one of those jobs is very difficult. So how did you guys, I don't know if this is really stood out to you, the direction or like the choreography? Is there anything about that
I thought the fight choreography itself was great. I thought actually everything that happened inside the ring I thought was very good. I thought it was done very well in terms of what they did in the ring. So hats off to him for that. I think it showed that he does care a lot about boxing and trying to show that the impacts of the punches feel impactful, and the choreography of the fights itself. Obviously, there's always sensationalism with all of the Rocky movies in terms of the number of punches thrown and the number of punches that land. Obviously, in real boxing, that wouldn't happen. They'd be no.
This ain't John's Blood Adventure.
But I think in terms of boxing movies, I think the choreography was done excellently.
See, I'm kind of halfway with you, Law, because I really enjoyed the first two fights, because like for me the best thing about it was there's points in which the camera zooms in on a certain part of the opponent's body, so you can see they're like kind of pinpointing the weaknesses. So I like that, because that's what boxers do in real life, isn't it? So the fact that they visualize that on screen, I was like, oh, that's a really sick way of obviously showing how the boxer's mind works. Because even in the second fight, that's how Dame beats, I can't remember the champ's name, but that's how he beats him, because he kind of realizes that his shoulder is injured, and then they just completely get rid of that in the final fight, which I was kind of disappointed about, because I really thought that was a sick idea, and it was a way to kind of keep some sort of continuity between the fights. And the other thing is, I felt like the final fight just kind of, I don't know how to spell it, but I kind of like lost the tension, because when you're like watching a fight, there's like a clear kind of balance of like who's winning, and what, like you can kind of tell who's dominating. But I felt like the final fight just got a bit sort of too illustrated, like too artsy. No, because there's a scene where the audience disappears and it's just them and then they're in a cage, and then I was just like, what? I was like, what's going on?
Well,
I
it
came
wasn't
to watch a
cage,
boxing fight.
It was representative of the prison bars,
Prison.
and
Yeah.
then when he got hit against the wall, it represented when he used to get beaten by Leon.
Yeah.
I didn't actually mind that scene. I thought I actually liked that scene. What I didn't like was that scene was meant to represent 10 rounds of the fight, or 9 rounds of the fight, because like the first 2 rounds, I think you see them fight in the boxing ring normally, and then they go to that art scene, and then after that, it's the 12th round. I'm like,
Yeah,
you just skipped over them. Like, if you had just done that, I would have minded that section if it just was for 1 or 2 rounds, and then they went back to normal boxing to show that back and forth and the balance of the fight. But the fact that they just wiped out the entire fight and then jumped to 12th round, that was my major problem with that. I think the choreography within it I thought was fine. I didn't mind that art in terms of representing what they're going through within the ring. I didn't mind it. It was just the fact that they just wiped out the entire fight using it. And
Exactly,
I thought that was a mistake.
It kind of sorry, I'll let you go.
No, you can go ahead if you're gonna.
No, just quickly, no pun. Well, this is a pun, but it lacked the punch of like the fight. Do you know what I mean? There was it just, I don't know, the fact that as you said, it skipped to the end, or it was a quick fight, which is supposed to be the whole 12 rounds. It lacked that sense of like build up and payoff. It was just like, oh, it's just okay, the fight's done now. But yeah, sorry, you were saying, Ruben.
No, I was just gonna say, I don't think all of the extra visualization of like obviously the prison bars and the wall and all that stuff didn't really add much to the fight for me. I did quite like when the audience like kind of disappeared and it was just like obviously they were focusing on each other, solely focused. I thought that was quite good because I've seen like some anime do that as well, where they kind of have like in boxing anime, like there's this one called like Megalo Box, where they basically do like a similar kind of thing in the final fight, where the audience disappears, it's all black, and the 2 fighters are just kind of focused on each other. So that was actually like pretty good and powerful. It's just when they started throwing in like the prison like bars and stuff and all that shit in the background, I couldn't connect with it because again I felt like I didn't see enough of like Dame's kind of character to really care about the things they were putting in to represent his history, the things he's gone through, his kind of adversity that he's trying to overcome, if that makes sense. I felt like if they had more...
I think they should have also shown more of what happened to them in the group home, because that's what a lot of this was about. And they just like showed a little flashback of some guy, a blurry flashback of him beating. You didn't even really see it properly. So it was
exactly.
If they showed that properly to show why did Adonis jump this guy like so badly, and
or just show you enough so that why is the visualization of that so important in the most important fight of the movie, the peak time? Like you can't really understand like the understanding of it from an audience perspective. You can't. So I think it was just a bit missed opportunity and probably not needed. But one of the things I was going to say, sorry, were you going to tack something on about this before I go into something else?
Yeah, just quickly.
Sorry,
I came in a little bit late. I wasn't there from the beginning. I came in at a bit where Adonis was like punching this guy's face, and I have no context for why he was doing that. Like, did they show why he decided to attack him?
Not at that time. At the time, we don't know why he did it. But it's explained later on in the movie. That was the guy that abused him in the group home.
Oh, I had no idea. I had no clue. Okay.
Yeah. So that's why he just jumped him out of the blue. That was the reason. Why. But that was a reveal later on in the movie.
One of the things that I would have liked to have seen in the fights is just on what Peter was saying. You know how, like you said, how one of the things that they kind of abandoned, how in like the first fight Adonis has at the beginning, you see how he's like focusing on like his opponent's like, I think like his like side or his rib or something. Like every time he shifts his weight and looks, the camera kind of like pans in and you can see like where his focus is. And one of the kind of repetitive like themes that Adonis' character puts forward in the movie, I can't remember the exact words, you remind me, but he keeps saying something like boxing is about focus or calm.
Oh, right.
No, it's like you know like when he's talking to his daughter and he's like, people think boxing is about aggression and anger, but really it's about, what did he say? Did he say focus or calm or peace or something like that?
Yeah, I think it's focus.
I think it's focus, but he gives his fighter that he's training the same advice, and it seems to be like a repetition, something he says like throughout the film. And what I would have quite liked is when he gets in the fight with Dame, to actually show like kind of a contrast of how, because he's now emotionally involved in this fight, he now abandons that said focus to be a bit more of an aggressive fighter. But Dame is more calm and collected and using that same focus, like he done in the earlier fight as well, when he kind of monopolized on that guy's shoulder, just to kind of show that contrast of now you've got Adonis being the aggressive fighter and Dame being the kind of calm, focused one, and the contrast being that's why maybe he starts losing at the beginning of the fight and then he regains that focus later. I thought that was a kind of a missed opportunity and something that they just kind of missed out on and ignored, which would have been very, I think, impactful in the final fight, because a lot of it is about focus in the fight. And
I feel like a lot of this, the main goal of the movie, it seemed to be a lot more focused around Adonis's family life and personal life rather than about his boxing or the boxing in general. So you see a lot about with his daughter and dealing with the disability, learning sign language, her daughter being bullied at school and punching, and there was a lot of that. Her mum, the mum's illness, his wife's record label, and all of that. There was a lot of that in the movie, and I feel like because of that, they had to cut down on the fights and the actual boxing. Because like in the final fight, like we were saying before, we have no idea up into the 12th round who's winning and who's losing. We have no clue.
Yeah.
So we kind of usually, even though it's a formula. Like we know in all the other Rocky and Creed movies, the protagonist is always losing up until the last round. He's always, like, we know that. Whereas in this one, it felt fairly even. Like it didn't feel like.
I think you have that one scene where he goes to the corner and like the guy who's coach just says, "Look, I need you to stop boxing and start fighting." And that's when like he kind of turns the tables on Dame and starts getting more into the fight. But even that is just sorry, I know I'm kind of jumping, but even like his kind of training montage, like when he's going through his training, like I just thought even that was quite weak as well. Who's the guy he's training with? You know, when he's first training to fight with Dame, and he has a sparring match with some big.
That was Drago.
That was Drago. Drago like knocks him down, like pushes him around, knocks him down, and then he kind of just has like a quick like 2-3 minutes like thought to himself, and then it goes into the training montage of how he trained. And but even again, that was just that's usually the thing where you show a fighter in this movie really pushing themselves to the limit, overcoming adversity, and pushes them to the point where they can now fight on that kind of champion level. But that was just like maybe like 3 or 4 minutes worth of the film, and it wasn't enough to convince me that now this guy is ready to knock shit out, bro.
They really fast forwarded.
I think like I was saying before, I think they had a lot of wasted potential here, because I think they could have built up his heavyweight a bit more. So the Chavez guy, his heavyweight, because he was meant to fight Drago, and it would have been good to see that fight and to see him beat Drago in order to gauge how good this guy actually is, and then to see Dame beat him. That would then build up Dame a bit more, and then see him beat a few other fighters, and then in that last fight, then you can actually build some stakes and actually feel like. But to only have 2 fights. And 2 very short fights, because one was in 2 rounds and the other one was 2 rounds, montage, like that little art thing, and then the final round. I think there wasn't enough boxing in a boxing movie.
In a boxing movie,
and that is the biggest criticism I can have of this movie. And the fights that were in there weren't impactful or emotionally impactful or relevant. We didn't care, because I didn't know who the heavyweight was that Dame beat. Really, we knew Adonis, it was Adonis's fighter, but we didn't know a lot about him. And then Dame versus Adonis, again, they didn't show much of the fight, and they didn't do enough to build up that fight to show that Dame should be a threat in this fight, or that Adonis. So I think there's a lot of missed opportunities here.
Yeah, it made the whole thing for me to seem like a side story, if I'm being honest. Like, I felt like if there was going to be like a Creed 4 movie or another sequel in this chain of like movies, I almost get the feeling like you can kind of just cliff note this one, because it's just not that eventful. Other than to introduce Dame as a character, it's almost like by the end of the movie, things revert exactly back to how things are in the diner between Dame and him in the diner. You can skip the whole thing and it just kind of reverts back to that. So there is no real progress. What is there left for Adonis Creed after this movie? I expect he's going back into retirement, bruv.
This film almost feels like an MCU film, because it's just like It's just here to set up the next movie or the next whatever road they decide to go down. Because obviously, even with his daughter, I think it's very clear that they're trying to foreshadow some sort of other project with her as a especially when he's like doing the teaching her how to box. Because like if you really think about it, the scenes where he's teaching her how to box, like apart from like the emotional kind of like gratification of it, like it doesn't really go anywhere. It's not like it's a story thread that doesn't really go anywhere.
I assume it was just him bonding with his daughter over something he enjoys and she wants to mimic, because obviously little girls idolize their fathers.
But it's a movie, so it's like obviously if it's in the movie, it's gonna have to play some sort of
You're trying to find purpose in it, and again, this is meant to be a boxing movie, but I think, like Law said, it is focused a lot around his family life, and that was kind of just another aspect of his family life, him connecting with his daughter. I will say the scene where he was showing her some boxing stuff in the punching bag, and he was signing it all to her. I actually quite liked that. I thought that was quite a not mega powerful, but quite a touching scene to see, like him signing the boxing to his daughter. I quite enjoyed that.
Yeah. As you're saying, Pete, I do think also there was an ulterior motive in that. In 5 or 10 years' time or whatever, or less than that, there will be a Creed 4, and it won't be about Adonis Creed. It will be about, I don't know what her name is, but her journey as become a boxer. Because obviously this would be the first time a female boxer would be that protagonist in a Rocky franchise movie, and obviously for diversity points that would go down well.
Yeah, exactly.
Obviously she's also got a disability as well, so that kicks that. But so there's a lot of material there they could use to build up, and also women's boxing is getting bigger and bigger as well. So I think that was also a driving force for that as well. So yeah, you're right. I think it was mainly about obviously showing his family life, but I think there's always that sequel bait that movies have to have to do that. So,
do you think sometimes it cheapens the writing of the movie when that is a plan, like that's planned during the writing of an actual film? Like obviously when Rocky with the Rocky movies, there was never the plan to have the Creed movies after. Do you think that if they had planned for Creed, that would have cheapened the Rocky movies a bit in the same way?
I think it depends on how it's done, because I think there is a lot to be said for planning, because if you don't plan, then you may have the problem of continuity issues and contradictions between movies, where you set something one way in one movie and then you contradict it in the next. So I understand planning from that point of view, but there is a contrivance, there's a sort of a cheapness and a contrivance, or just trying to print money aspect to it as well, and you're just milking a franchise. Because for me, I think this should be the last Creed movie. Like in terms of, I think this trilogy had a beginning, middle, and end. I think we should get back to trilogies, because obviously everything has to be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 movies now. But I think this has shown the beginning, middle, and end of. And to be fair, it probably is in terms of Adonis Creed. So I think the next movie will probably be, if they're going to do it, it will. I don't think we're going to see Adonis Creed in the ring again. Is point.
Not unless he's just wiping sweat, bruv. But I totally agree. I think my only issue is when they do that is when you're forced to put things in a movie for the purpose of setting things up, and it then takes away screen time for other events which could make that movie more fulfilled and more filling. Which I think this movie probably had a few issues with. A lot of the scenes which we probably think doesn't need to be there if we're just focused on the trilogy, but for the purpose of a sequel, yes, why not? But yeah.
Cool. So
you guys may know Michael B. Jordan. He's like a huge anime fan. Did you guys clock the anime references in the film? Or I just wanted to know if that was something you guys were.
The only referencing I kind of saw was this is when I looked at it after, but that anime Megalo box that I mentioned. Again, there's a final fight in that between the guy's name's Joe. He's the protagonist, and Yuri, the antagonist. And that scene was quite. The fight, has some really similar kind of scenes in it, which are, I imagine, not just from that anime, but other anime as well. Like the scene where they both punch each other in the face and they're crossing arms. That's quite a common anime kind of thing to do. It's been done in Dragon Ball Z. It's been done in Magala box. I think it's been done in what's that other one? Hippo, no, whatever it's called. Yeah. And then just the whole thing about obviously blackening the audience out and making the fighters seem like they're focused on each other. I definitely get some kind of anime influences.
There's a specific punch
in that specific fight.
There's a specific punch that was like taken from Dragon Ball Z. There's a scene where Goku punches Vegeta in the stomach. And they actually like, Michael B. Jordan, he actually like mirrored the scene.
Yeah.
In the final fight, Dame punches Adonis in the stomach. That's the bit where he like, he takes an L in the fight and he's like kind of losing. I don't know if you guys remember that. It's like meant to be like the main.
I don't remember that one. I just remember the one where their fists cross arms and they hit each other in the face. But again, I think those things. Maybe you could probably tell me like more law if you tend to see those things in actual boxing fights, but in terms of a movie, it's something that just makes it more eccentric and beautiful. I'm not sure if that would be realistic for an actual boxing fight.
Well, a double knockout. It has happened.
Yeah, just like
as well. Yeah, that's another one.
Happened. But it's rare because it's just the chances of that happening is rare, but it's not beyond.
I mean, they filmed it anyway. They filmed it in this film.
Sorry, I didn't. When you said cross their arms, I thought you meant like Wakanda Forever. I was like, I don't remember that being in the film.
No. I meant when their arms crossed.
One where they're like, they
that's Wakanda Forever, bro. No.
Oh man.
Cool.
So man.
I don't think there's not much else I would touch on in the film.
I just wanted to say
can I just want to quickly ask how did you guys feel about how Dame manipulated things for his favor? Do you think that was quite well done in terms of writing, how he manipulated things to get what he wanted? Yeah.
No, I thought
so.
It was. You know what? At first,
really contrived.
You know what? Yeah, like
jail buddy to get into. How did he
get in there, bro?
The label party. Like, how did you get that close to a heavyweight box? Like and he got in there with a weapon. It was contrived. I think
you know the ones there, bruv. You know the ones there where like they just add a scene to show like Dame was planning this for like years, and he made sure the guy got a job as a waiter, bruv, up in there. Like I was just like, how did it just seemed a bit.
Also the fact that there was no other fighter that could possibly fight. Like that is
what a chance.
It just would never. There's no other heavyweight fighter that can take that spot.
I have no idea, bro.
That has no professional fights.
Not convenient, isn't it? Not convenient.
To be honest, the fact that
there was better ways to do it. There were better ways to do it than that, in my opinion. I think it was quite good. Right? I didn't like it.
The fact that Dame was.
Because I was just like, why would this guy randomly attack him, and then you find out afterwards it was just like.
I was just about to say that.
Let's not forget. Let's not forget that only came out by luck because his mum showed him. Did his mum show him the pictures? His mum showed him pictures and he saw the guy. So that was just luck.
In there. It was pure luck. What if that guy?
Yeah, it was luck. We would never know, bro.
Yeah. I'm actually glad, as you were saying, I'm glad that.
To be fair, if we didn't know, because it'd be like, why did this random guy just attack a heavyweight boxer like that? Why would you do that?
And specifically on the news, they say, oh, this boxer, his hands were injured, and I'm like, oh my god, like how is this? Like I was just rolling my eyes like back and forth. But obviously, it kind of makes it better when you find out that Dame had a thing to do with it. Because I'm like, what are the chances that he injures his hand? Like his hands, like how often does that happen?
I think you see like he smashes like something on his hand in it, like what happened?
But what are the chances? Someone's trying to get a shot.
But interestingly, what would have happened? I mean, you would expect like the boxer to knock this guy out. Like, what would have happened to Dame's plan if actually the guy he paid just got knocked out, and what's next? What's next in the plan, bro?
Plan B. That could have gone wrong in so many different ways. There was better ways, I think, to build up that fight. You could have because they were sparring with each other, you could have had Dame knock him out in the ring and then publicize it on the internet and start embarrassing him. Because that's how a lot of boxing fights start. Like, if you embarrass the guy in sparring, you put a video out on YouTube, and then people start picking up, oh yeah, he knocked down the heavyweight champion in sparring. It's like, and then he starts calling him out outside, and that's how you big up the fight. But yeah, to injure the guy, to get him guy into a label party that he would never get access to, that was lucky. And he was lucky that he was there. He just happened to be invited. He just happened to be invited.
Mad short notice, innit? Mad short notice, bro.
Yeah.
Like, it was like you got invited like last week. Like,
It was all part of the plan. It was all part of the plan, man.
But yeah, so I didn't like that either. Yeah.
He had 18 years to plan it, so don't question it. 18 years. Everyone went to a team.
Oh Lord.
So yeah, man. Alright, well, I'm ready to go. I haven't really got any more to add. I was just gonna say, like, the acting was really good, especially Jonathan Majors. I would say though, there are parts where it feels like he's overacting a bit, especially like with Michael B. Jordan, because Michael B. Jordan, he's very like down to earth. He's like kind of calm, but he's believable. He's natural. But I feel like Jonathan Majors, he's very theatrical. Like, he's very like animated. So it kind of stands out to me. And like Tessa,
I just like I like how humble he can come across on screen from his face. He can be an intimidating character. Dame.
Yeah.
He can be an intimidating character, but he is also very easily, just with his face expressions and stuff, he comes across very humble, very polite, not hateable. So I need to, hats off to the actor for that, because I think he's done a fantastic job at showing that contrast of being that humble guy to then being almost a provocative prick, to try and goad Creed into fighting him. So I thought that was quite well done in terms of acting. In terms of Michael B. Jordan, he's obviously a great actor, but again, I didn't care much for his character in the movie so much. I was mainly looking forward to the scenes when Dame was going to be there and cause some mayhem and conflict. So just not much growth in his character, to be honest. Yeah. Bad characters get a thumbs up,
Yeah.
Okay, should we head on to verdicts?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay. I'll go first.
Yep.
So yeah, as we discussed, I've had quite a lot of problems with the movie. And hearing myself back, I do sound like I'm being overcritical, to be fair. But I think, to summarize, not enough boxing in a boxing movie, and the boxing that we did have, there wasn't enough setup for the fights that were in there to add more weight to the actual losses and the wins, and to show how good or bad these boxers were. I know that Drago was in the last movie, but I think they could have used him more, maybe showing the Chavez fight in Drago, just so you can have a gauge of how good Chavez actually was as a fighter, because we know nothing about him apart from that his mum is very overprotective and is his manager. So I think that could have been done well. I think there was ways where they could have built the stakes and made the fights much more impactful. Sort of delved a bit more into Dame's past and Adonis's past in that group home as well, just to show a bit more as to why he was so reluctant to share it with his wife. But in terms of positives, I think all the acting characters' performances were great. I think the child actor, the daughter, I thought also done a great job. Obviously, signing and all that as well probably adds to that. I have no idea if the child actor is actually deaf or not, to be fair.
She is.
It'd be interesting to find that out.
Yeah.
Oh, she is. Okay, so that makes sense. So I think she done a great job with that, and I think obviously Michael B. Jordan. And even though I didn't like the amount of family stuff that was in there, I think they portrayed it very well in terms of, I believe there was definitely a great connection between the family. So they acting-wise, they did a great job. I just think we needed that much in this movie. But the choreography in the actual fights we've got were good, and I like the fighting scenes that were in there. And I probably would watch it again, but I'm just a fan of boxing. I've seen Creed a few times. I've seen Creed 2 a few times. This is definitely the worst of the trilogy. I think Creed 2 was the best in the trilogy, and I think Sylvester Stallone is a big part of why Creed 2 was really good, and Creed 1. And I do think, even though I understand why he's not in here, and on balance, I don't think he should be in here. I still think he was missed here as well. So I think, Pete, what you said is that maybe he should have been in the writing room, maybe just not necessarily in the movie, but in the writing room. I'm glad they didn't kill him off or anything, though, to be fair. I'm happy they didn't do it. I'm happy they just didn't say anything. That's better than like contrived.
Yeah, it leaves the possibility that he may make an appearance in later movies.
Yeah.
That's probably why.
Yeah, and it would be disrespectful to kill him off in that way, I think. So just kill him off screen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So overall, I would give this movie, because I do like boxing movies in general, and I did like performances, and I think Jonathan Major did a good job. So I'm going to give this a 6 out of 10. That's my rating.
I'll go next. I'm not a big fan of boxing movies. I don't watch boxing at all. But I do think for this movie, the acting was really well done. Like you said, the family elements were done really well. Props to Tessa Thompson and the little girl. I think the actual fighting scenes that we saw, they were done really well. They looked good. There weren't enough of them, like you said, and they definitely weren't long enough. Especially the last fight. That fight felt like it lasted 10 seconds. It was just done. They should have spread out. Overall, I'd give it a 5. It was a bit bland, no seasoning. Just it needed a bit of oomph.
Oh, cool. All right, cool. Yeah. I'll hit it up next. I think I'm almost there with you, Cam. If not for the fights that were in the movie, I would have given it a 5. But I think even though there wasn't nearly enough fights in it for a boxing film, the fights that were there were definitely a spectacle to look at. Just with the effects, the camera angles, the way that you really were able to immerse yourself in the fight and see things from both an audience perspective and from the boxer's perspective, and also from a technical perspective as well. Like just seeing how much they look into weaknesses and where to hit, where to punch, and how the body ripples and how everything affects the boxers in a fight. So I thought that was pretty well done. The last fight scene was pretty cool as well, just seeing obviously the flurry of punches. Obviously it was just like a lot of flurry of the punches, but I thought it was quite a powerful thing to see, especially given the history of the characters. So that was quite a spectacle to watch. And then obviously the kind of subtle anime influences as well, with some of the key scenes where they kind of cross punches. Pete was talking about the scene where I think Dame punches Adonis in the gut. So yeah, things like that made the fight scenes that were in the movie just a spectacle for me to watch. Everything else was just a bit bland. The only thing which really kind of stood out to me in the movie really was Dame's character, and that was just because I actually was hoping, and I thought he was actually going to end up being the one on top at the end of this movie. To be honest, I was actually in his corner. I was rooting for the antagonist because yeah, he was just mad humble at the beginning, likable, and this movie almost it doesn't make Adonis' character seem like a prick, but it just makes, for me anyway, it just made me not want to root for him. So yeah, I was a bit upset that they kind of just went with the simple, easy kind of layout and just let Adonis knock him out in their first fight. I think that kind of cheapened it for me. And it also cheapened it with the way how they ended things. Like I said, all the tension that they had throughout the movie was dispersed by a conversation in the locker room, when rarely there were other scenes which done more than that conversation. I think when I spoke to you, Pete, you mentioned the scene where he's about to go into one of his fights, and you kind of see Adonis and Dame side by side with the wall in between them, and they're just not saying anything. But even it's a scene that speaks 1,000 words, even though there's no words. So yeah, I think I'll give the movie a 6. I would give it a 5, but just because they did have some spectacle fight scenes in there, and because of Jonathan Mayer's character, I think that bumps it up to a 6 for me. Nutritious, but nothing special, but not really well prepared and presented because of all the things that they missed out in it, which would have put me over the edge to give it a 7. So yeah.
Yeah, man, so I guess that leaves me. So yeah, that was a good summary, Ruben. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the first 2 Creed movies as well. I'd even go as far as say I have more kind of because I haven't seen the Rocky movies in a long time. I'm more attached to the Creed movies because I've seen them more recently. So yeah, even the second Creed, as you're saying, that was your favorite. Like that's also mine because It completely took me by surprise. Like I was choking up in that movie because the story hit so hard. Like it just had so much heart to it, and it was just so like it was like there was scenes that were really upsetting. Obviously with Rocky, you know, you thought he was actually going to pass away, and even the backstory with Drago's son.
Yeah,
that was really powerful as well. I felt. So
they humanized him. Yeah,
absolutely.
They humanized him.
Yeah. Absolutely. So yeah, going into this movie, I was really excited about this film, and obviously the fact that Michael B. Jordan, I have so much respect for this guy. Like for me, he's like I have the respect that I used to have for Will Smith. Obviously, not getting political, but like I feel like he could potentially.
Not fired.
I feel like he could potentially be the new Will Smith because he's just such an incredibly talented, actor. Like even the direction I felt was pretty good. Going back to what you said about that shot, that was very creative. So the film is like it kind of does what it came to do. I reckon in terms of like being entertaining. I just felt like it didn't really hit the potential that it could have. Obviously you guys have already kind of picked up the main things with, I think the fights kind of, the journey towards those fights just didn't really have that oomph. That it didn't really have that that tension or that that kind of build up, which made you want to kind of let me see these two slug it out. I don't know. It was there, but it just didn't really hit home. I
it's
feel
because
like,
you know it's coming as well.
Yeah, exactly. It just feels very predictable, and obviously these type of films are predictable, but at the same time,
you know it's coming, but like they could still build it up.
They could still do like an emotional roller coaster, which I feel was like lacking in this movie. That kind of emotional roller coaster, getting there. I really would have liked to see these. Like obviously they showed the one flashback of that one tragic night, where obviously their fates kind of. It's the inciting incident really, but I would have liked to see them kind of both grow up over time, because this would have been a good way to, because we've seen a little bit of Adonis's backstory in like the first Creed, and not really in the second one, but more in the first one. We've seen his backstory, but it would have been nice to kind of see more of his his growing up, or both of them growing up, like as a parallel, to see how they both kind of came up, and even kind of as the film's playing, they're showing you them as like youngsters growing up together, or not together, but growing up simultaneously in their different environments, and that would have just been very powerful and thematic to show you like how your environment kind of it kind of
shapes you.
It kind of creates you, because obviously they kind of came from the same place, they came from the same home. So I feel like it was a big missed potential there, but obviously it's his first directorial debut. I think Ryan Coogler was involved in writing this as well, who did the last two movies. But yeah, I feel like it was an acceptable, film. The fight scene, some of the fight scenes were kind of cool, but I just wanted more. It left me wanting more. Like I didn't feel satisfied by the way they kind of played out. Some of the shots did look really, really cool within the fight. But yeah, I just was like, is that it? I would have liked to see more. So yeah, I give this one also a 6. Nutritious but nothing special. So yeah, sadly it's like not living up to the Creed that I wanted. But I can see like there's quite a lot of people that I've spoken to who actually like this film. So I can see why you would like it. But yeah, I just felt like it's just missing that kind of kick, that spice.
How often does a third movie in a trilogy go out on a high? Anyway, usually movies do kind of almost peak in the middle or at the begining. So
yeah, you're right. It's
cut it a bit of slack because of that.
Trying to think of a third movie that did well.
Yeah,
well, exactly. I'm just you have to give it a bit of slack because of that. It done good enough to warrant it being a movie. I'll give it that. Like, do you know what I mean? So and in the cinema as well.
For Ragnarok.
Yeah.
True.
And then
although
killed it.
I still count that as part of the whole MCU thing.
So,
okay, technically, innit? You know what I mean? Like,
okay.
Oh gosh. But yeah, calm. Do you think sorry, what is it? Is it Jonathan Mayers? Do you think this movie shows his acting ability a lot better than Ant-Man does? Him as Khan in Ant-Man. Do you think this is a much better movie where you get to see his ability more so than
I feel like this film is a lot more grounded, so you get to it feels he feels more sympathetic than in Ant-Man. Because in Ant-Man, it's hard to really take him seriously, especially with that final scene, the post-credit scene, where he's just really overacting, like kicking it to 11. Whereas this one, he feels more like he's still very animated in this movie, but he feels more like a realistic person you could meet. And you were saying with his expressions, like he doesn't, like, a lot of the time he doesn't even need to say anything, but you could just you can just see how he's like his feelings just by looking at his expressions.